But we begin tonight with a big lie. No, not the big lie, another lie. Something that we heard in Senator Katie Britt's response to President Biden's State of the Union address last week. Now, you remember, during the Alabama senator's rather odd remarks, there was this moment when things got really, really dark.
I traveled to the Del Rio sector of Texas. That's where I spoke to a woman who shared her story with me. She had been sex trafficked by the cartels starting at the age of 12. This is the United States of America, and it is past time, in my opinion, that we start acting like it. President Biden's border policies are a disgrace.
Now, while she does not explicitly say when and where these horrific events took place, it is heavily implied that it happened on President Biden's watch, which turns out not to be the case at all. As journalist Jonathan Katz uncovered this weekend, not only did these atrocities take place in Mexico and not in the United States, they happened between 2004 and 2008 when the American president was George W. Bush. The victim in this story, Carla Jacinto Romero, even spoke out after Britt's lies were exposed, telling CNN, quote, "I hardly ever cooperate with politicians because it seems to me that they only want an image. They only want a photo. And that, to me, is not fair," unquote. But beyond just misleading the public on that story, something else Senator Britt also forgot to mention is her own party's role in blocking immigration-related legislation over the past several decades. Now, I'm old enough to remember when comprehensive immigration reform was actually a very normie Republican policy goal in the Ronald Reagan, George Herbert Walker Bush era. In fact, in November 1986, my freshman year in college, President Reagan signed into law the Bipartisan Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986, better known as the Simpson-Mazzoli Act, named for a Democratic Congressman, Romano Mazzoli of Kentucky, and Republican Senator Alan Simpson of Wyoming. A bill that granted literal and immediate amnesty to any immigrant who had arrived in the U.S. prior to January 1st, 1982, some 2 million people, while making it illegal to knowingly hire undocumented migrants going forward. That was an acceptable and normal Republican position in 1986. But ever since then, there has been a right-wing war on immigration reform, driven not by Republican politicians, but rather by another thing that came out of the 1980s, besides lifestyles of the rich and famous and Donald Trump. Right-wing talk radio, led by its biggest star, Rush Limbaugh, whose nationally syndicated show first aired 2 years before the Simpson-Mazzoli bill in 1984. And when Fox News, Roger Ailes' right-wing propaganda operation, joined the fray in 1996, the incentive structure of the Republican Party, it just fundamentally changed. By 2007, the George W. Bush administration and a bipartisan group of senators reached a deal on an immigration bill that would have created a path to citizenship for the millions of post-1986 undocumented immigrants living in America, as well as a new temporary worker program and stricter border security. Many thought that this would be the big legislative achievement of Bush's presidency, until this happened.
We heard that there was a bipartisan consensus on immigration. It was bipartisan, and it was all good. President Bush was signing on, and Republicans, John Kyle, and we had Ted Kennedy was happy. That's all I needed to hear. It had been left up to the major news networks or the, regular cable networks. This would have been a done deal. This was signed, sealed, and delivered right at the Rio Grande for us. Well, it turned out that talk radio and the internet energized the people.
Right-wing cable, TV, and radio hosts like Laura Ingraham, as well as Lou Dobbs, Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, and especially Rush Limbaugh, trashed the bill nonstop, blanketing the airwaves and rallying their largely white male conservative audiences against the bill, until hardliners in Congress, who were also likely hardcore consumers of right-wing media themselves alongside their voters, killed it entirely. Almost the same thing happened 6 years later when President Obama was in office. That is when the Gang of Eight was formed, a bipartisan group of senators who came together to finally get immigration reform done. The group included big names in the Republican Party like John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and was led by Marco Rubio, a Cuban American and the party's new Tea Party star. The Latino Obama, the media crowed, hyping him up as Republicans' potential first Latino president. The New York Times reported that as part of the sales pitch, Rubio went on Limbaugh's show to try to sell him on the bill. And Rubio, along with Senator Chuck Schumer, went so far as to meet with Rupert Murdoch and Roger Ailes to try to persuade them to keep Fox's on-air personalities from savaging the legislation and just give it a fighting chance at survival. But apparently they were unsuccessful, as that is exactly what wound up happening. Several conservative media figures even signed on to a letter opposing this bill. And once again, it died in Congress. Fast forward to today. And we shouldn't be surprised that yet another bipartisan border bill was killed by D.C. Republicans, including the aforementioned Alabama Senator Katie Britt, who, like Rubio, was part of the team that negotiated the very conservative immigration bill that House Speaker Mike Johnson is now refusing to bring to the floor, all because the new Rush Limbaugh, Donald Trump, told them he wants to run on the issue instead of letting his party solve it.
Makes you feel any better? I have already put evac on alert. He's ready to go if it comes to that. General, I can assure you.
Hey, General, let me into the war room to see you, so I had to hack my way onto this frequency.
This better be critical, Wheelie.
Sir, come on, when is it not, please? Okay, couple of things. I'm running low on the dough. I was thinking about taking a couple of months sick leave, maybe starting today. And, oh yeah, I intercepted a transmission from Megatron.
Then send it through.
Yes, sir, right away, sir. And so I'll assume that we're going on the other stuff.
This is your last warning, insects. Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the insect? You? What? Who's the insect?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world, and we will defeat them here.
The Megatron.
This was just a diversion. Security teams bring up. Rabbit, she's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. Boss readiness. What was his name? What was it?
Evac, sir.
Right, evac.
She's right in front.
We are facing a heavy, sustained attack. They appear to be after the Allspark. General! General!